In the NFC East, the division winners and Super Bowl champs, the Philadelphia Eagles, they had a solid offseason. There weren't any major splashes like the addition of the 2024 NFL Offensive Player of the Year when they got Saquon Barkley last offseason, but they were able to keep most of their championship core together, still finding some value in the draft. So the two avenues to improve the NFL rosters, they're pretty much now in the books. So free agency, the NFL draft. Now, a key trade, of course, could go down. There are some NFL vets that are still on the market. But for the most part, rosters are pretty secured, which means it is a perfect time for us to assess how the offseason has gone for these teams. We got Pete Prisco and Douzable here joining us with offseason grades. And Lige, this is your moment. This is all about your grades. And then Pete is going to dissect them, which I gotta love.
I probably agree with him, though.
We'll see. We'll see. We're going to start with the Eagles. Philadelphia did a really good job retaining a solid number of their championship team. Walk us through what they did right and what your overall grade is for this offseason.
Yeah, JD, we were just talking with Pete about earlier how essentially on the offense, everybody is back except for Mekhi Becton. So anytime you can bring everybody back from a championship winning team, it's a good looking offseason for you. On the defensive side, right, being able to get an all-pro to sign back in Zach Bond, which was an amazing signing because when you look, there could be issues at the linebacker position. Jahad Campbell, who they took in the first round, I know he's coming off shoulder surgery. Will he be ready? Now, everything I've heard, he could be ready for training camp, but let's not forget Nakobe Dean had a torn patella tendon, and he most likely will not start the season ready. So could there be some issues at the linebacker position? Yes, they lost a lot of people this offseason. You see it, Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, Milton Williams. But I like some of the low-end free agent pickups they had in Azeez Ojulari, also Josh Uche, who's not on this list. And then that trade, Kenyon Green, they traded CJ Gardner-Johnson, but they got Kenyon Green in return. But look at this, Andrew Makuba, he's going to fill that void for what CJ Gardner-Johnson
He'll compete with Sidney Brown.
He'll compete with Sidney Brown, who they really love as well. Right. But, you know, sometimes they use a three-safety set as well, so they'll bring him in as well. I also like Mac McWilliams. He's a guy that has flexibility to play on the outside and in the slot. So I gave the Eagles a solid B for this offseason. They didn't bring any gaudy names, but they retained one of their better defensive players, and they didn't really lose anybody on offense.
No, they've had a good offseason, and Howie Roseman knows what he's doing. Let's be real. I mean, look, he's done a great job drafting. He's done a great job signing free agents. He knows when to let guys go. They traded Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Everybody said, well, why? Well, because they know they got Sidney Brown, now they got Makuba. They didn't need him anymore. So I think that's the biggest thing about the Eagles is Howie Roseman has done such a great job really stockpiling this roster with young players.
So you agree with a B?
Yes. That's it. Actually, I might be a little higher. I might give him a B+.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, this next team got a B+. The Commanders, they reached the NFC Championship game in Jaden Daniels' rookie season. I don't think any of us expected for them to have that rebuild quite as fast as they did. They did make a couple of big trades this offseason. Grade.
Yeah, I gave them the B+, right? They traded for Deebo Samuel. Also getting Lermy Tunsil at left tackle was amazing. Now, their head scratcher on this list was Javon Kinlaw, you know, because they lost Jonathan Allen and they replaced him with Javon Kinlaw and giving them $15 a year, which lets you know he's going to be the guy from day one. But they had a home run draft. We talk about taking Josh Conerly, who can moonlight at left tackle or right tackle. So he can even maybe play some guard for you because he did that at the Senior Bowl as well.
Well, he ain't playing left tackle.
No, but right tackle is a possibility. I know Wiley's there, but he could compete with Wiley and potentially start this year. But Trey Amos was a home run pick in the second round. I actually talked to GM Adam Peters, and I was like, I had this guy as a first-round pick. He said, dudes, so did we. And he fell all the way to the bottom of the second round for him. What it allows him to do is Mike Sanderstill, who's one of the better slot corners, it allows him to go back in the slot. So now you have Marshawn Lattimore on the outside and Trey Amos on the outside as well. And they also signed Jonathan Jones, who's a veteran guy that played a lot of years, championship pedigree with the New England Patriots. So I gave them a B+ for adding two guys via trade, but I really love what they did in the draft as well.
I would probably give them a B, and the reason I say that is I'm not usually a big guy who believes in getting rid of draft picks for veterans because I think that comes back and bites you at some point. The Tunsil trade I understood.
Correct.
I think they made that Tunsil trade with the idea they weren't going to be able to draft a left tackle. So looking back on it, would they have still made the trade if they knew they were going to get Connolly? And because Connolly could play left tackle, and as it is now, he's probably going to compete at right tackle. They might move, you know, like you said, they might move Wiley back to guard. He's played guard before, but it gives them a bunch of Coleman from last year who played left tackle is going to compete at guard. It gives them more flexibility, so I do like it. I don't love the trade for Deebo Samuel. Look, I just don't think he's the same player. He was a little heavy last year. He was slow of foot. Now, if he comes back, he's dedicated, maybe. We'll see how he is, but right now, I don't love that trade.
To your point, they restructured his deal, so he's essentially a free agent. So, again, this is a contract year for him, so you would hope you would get the best Deebo Samuel.
Pass rush. Edge pass
That was
rush.
my one concern.
It's kind of sitting out there.
Yeah,
they didn't do it. They didn't do it. They lost guys, and they didn't do much there, so that's a concern.
Okay, so we're in the B's with those two. How about them Cowboys? That's what we got to ask about. They spent the fewest amount of money in the entire league last offseason. Dallas a little bit more active in free agency in 2025. They had one of the better drafts, you could say,
yeah,
when it comes to guys, right?
For sure.
Grade them.
C-. And I gave them a C- because Jerry Jones usually doesn't bring in anybody in free agency. Now, they re-signed Osa Odighizuwa, which I thought was big to solidify the interior defensive line. But you see it, Javonte Williams, they re-signed my guy Solomon Thomas. Dante Fowler, who actually had a really good season on edge. We were just talking about the Commanders. He played really well, had double-digit sacks. They re-signed him because he was there before. Kenneth Murray, Joe Milton in the trade, and Miles Sanders. But when you look at that, are any of these pieces key pieces to make you compete with the Eagles right now? And then my biggest concern, Pete, at wide receiver, when are they going to get a running mate for CeeDee Lamb? Now, I know that Jerry Jones loves Jonathan Mingo and he gave up draft capital to get him, but they had a real opportunity to potentially add to the receiving group this offseason and in the draft, and they didn't either. Now, getting to back with what JD said, love the draft. Tyler Booker in the first. Me and Pete's #1 guard. He's going to bring an attitude to that offensive line. Donovan Azaraku was an amazing pick in the second round. They needed some pass rush help. That third pick is where it's at, though, Pete. Suvon Revel. If he hadn't had the ACL,
he'd be a first rounder.
He would be a first-round pick. And to me, if he's healthy, especially with the issues with Trayvon Diggs and potentially not being ready for the season, that is a massive pick in the third round to get a first-round talent in the third round. So I love their draft. I just felt like they didn't do enough in the offseason to compete with the Philadelphia Eagles.
The receiver spot is glaring to me. I thought they should have addressed it at some point in the draft, and they didn't. But they did get a speed runner, though, who I like. I like
Jaden Blue.
Jaden Blue, man. He can run, and he gives you a home run ability, so that'll help them a little bit in the offense. But I'm with you. I'd probably give him a B-. But I think because they added a lot of bodies and didn't spend a ton to do it. And that's sometimes the way to go. Their offensive line is going to be much better by just putting Booker in there at right guard. I think he's going to be a physical presence. So I do think they'll be better on the offensive line. But I ping them a little bit for not getting the speed receiver to go with CeeDee Lamb. Okay, let's finish this off with the New York Giants. One of the more interesting QB rooms coming into the 2025 season. A lot of personalities there. They needed to address their defense. They did in free agency, and of course they did, grabbing Abdul Carter in the draft. Lige, where'd you grade them?
Gave them a B+. They got their quarterback of the future and the plan. I actually just got off the phone with Joe Shane. I was talking to him on my show earlier today. He said the plan is for Russell Wilson to start, right? And they said they had the same plan in Buffalo with Josh Allen until they were getting blown out one game. They put him in, and Josh actually looked good, and they kept him in as a starter. So right now the plan is to sit Jackson Dart and Russell Wilson to be the starting quarterback. But I love what they did in the offseason. Javon Holland, getting Paulson and Debo. Those were needs that they had on the defensive side. And then you get the best pass rusher in the draft in Abdul Carter to pair with Dexter Lawrence and Brian Spider Burns. And then Darius Alexander in the third round was a home run pick. A lot of people didn't think he'd be there. Cam Scottaboo adds some physicalness to that offense.
Yeah, they've had a good offseason. I didn't love the move to go get the quarterback. It reeked of desperation to me. I said that during the draft. I just think when you're sitting there and you're the general manager and you're the head coach and you have Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston, you know you're not going to win that division with those guys or even compete for a playoff spot. So you're desperate. You kind of trade back in and get your quarterback. The question becomes, when does the quarterback play? And if he plays, can he save your job? And that's the question. I don't know if he can, but if he does play and he saves their jobs, it's a great pick. If he plays and he doesn't save their jobs, it's a pick for the next regime. Time will tell in that one. Lige, great job with that. A very, very good work. And what was your grade? B+. B+. I'd probably give him a little B. Yeah, B. B? You're a happy grader. You're happy.
I gave the Cowboys a C-.
Yeah, you're a happy grader today.
Well, I'm fine with it. I like better grades. Looking at the odds to win the NFC East here, no surprise whatsoever. It is the Eagles that are the heavy favorite.